Picture this: a clueless cook, a hot stove, and a recipe for disaster. Literally, let's dive right into the story of our cooking novice, who's decided to venture into the culinary world, armed with nothing more than a glossy gourmet cookbook and an abundance of misplaced confidence. Now, our protagonist has this peculiar trait. He believes himself to be a culinary savant, despite having never boiled an egg without causing a minor kitchen fire. But today he's decided to step it up a notch. The plan? A 5-course gourmet meal? The reality? Well, let's just say it's more of a comedy of errors. We begin with the soup. He's chopping vegetables with the enthusiasm of a seasoned chef, but the precision of a blindfolded pirate. He's got onions in his eyes, carrots flying across the room, and a pot that's double the size of what he needs. But does that deter him? Not in the least. Next up, the main course. He's got a recipe that calls for a pinch of sugar, but with a confounding mix-up, he reaches for the salt instead. He pours it in with a flourish, only to be met with a salty surprise at the first taste. But you've got to give it to him. He gulps it down with a grimace and a thumbs up. For dessert, he's got a cake in mind. He's got the flour, the eggs, and this time he's got the sugar right. But in his excitement, he grabs a pot instead of a cake tin. The result, more of a cake stew than a fluffy delight, but he's not dismayed. He dubs it fusion cuisine and serves it with a scoop of ice cream. Through the course of the evening, he's managed to turn his kitchen into a war zone, his gourmet meal into a series of unfortunate dishes, and his overconfidence into a source of endless amusement. And to top it all off, the fire alarm goes off. Well, at least we know that's working. Next up, we head to the gym, where the weights are heavy and the embarrassment is heavier. Picture this: a gym newbie, muscles as fresh as morning dew, struts into the weight room with the confidence of a peacock. He glances around, sizing up the competition. The air is thick with testosterone and the scent of determination, or maybe that's just the sweat. Our brave hero, let's call him Flex, decides to impress the crowd. He heads straight for the biggest, baddest weights on the rack, his eyes sparkling with ambition. You can almost hear his inner monologue, "I am Flex, hear me roar." He hoists the weights high above his head, his face redder than a tomato in summer. The grunting begins, sounding like a bear with a particularly stubborn itch. It's over the top, it's dramatic, it's a little bit hilarious. Suddenly, a sweet elderly lady, let's call her Granny Strong, ambles over. She's smaller than Flex by a country mile, but don't let that fool you. With a smile as bright as her silver hair, she picks up weights heavier than Flex's with all the effort of someone lifting a teacup. Flex's face is a picture of shock as the gym erupts in laughter. His ego deflates faster than a punctured football, but he can't help but join in the laughter. After all, who could have predicted getting out-muscled by Granny Strong? Remember, folks, it's not about how much you lift, it's about how much you can make others laugh while trying. Ever watched an elderly person wrestle with modern technology? Grab your popcorn, folks! Now, let's dive into the tale of Grandpa Joe, a sprightly octogenarian with a heart full of curiosity and a mind that's, well, let's just say it's not quite up to speed with the 21st century. One sunny afternoon, Grandpa Joe decides he wants to get in touch with the times. He dusts off a brand new smartphone that his grandchildren gifted him last Christmas, and with a determined glint in his eyes, he embarks on his technological adventure. Imagine his bewilderment when he first lays eyes on the sleek, glassy device. It's like nothing he's ever seen before. He's used to buttons and dials, not this shiny touchscreen magic. His first encounter with the phone's camera leaves him flabbergasted. He's amazed at how he can see his own face on the screen. Is this some sort of magic mirror? He wonders aloud. Then comes the encounter with digital photos. He tries to swipe a physical photo as if it's a touchscreen. Why isn't it changing? He mutters, shaking the photo as if to wake it up from its stubborn slumber. He even tries to zoom it. But alas, the photo remains stubbornly the same size. And let's not forget Siri, the voice-activated virtual assistant. Upon discovering her, Grandpa Joe is convinced he's made a new friend. He chats with Siri as if she were a long-lost companion, sharing tales from his youth and asking her opinion on the day's news. He even offers her a cup of tea one afternoon, disappointed when she doesn't reply. Oh, the hilarity that ensues when he tries to use the GPS. He sets it to navigate to the local grocery store, but then insists on arguing with it about the route. No, Siri, the park is much prettier this time of year," he scolds, much to the amusement of his baffled cat. "Oh, Grandpa, maybe stick to your old rotary phone." Now let's venture into the great outdoors, where one man's green thumb turns out to be not so green after all. Picture this, folks, a sunny afternoon, a freshly mowed lawn, and a man armed with garden gloves, a watering can, and a heart full of hope. Meet our unlucky gardener, whose enthusiasm for flora is only matched by his knack for botany blunders. Our tale begins with a packet of flower seeds and a dream. Our gardener, let's call him Bob, decides to plant some lovely tulips. A simple task, right? Well, not for Bob. In a twist of events that can only be described as root ally, ridiculous, Bob plants the tulips upside down. Yes, you heard it right, bulbous ends pointing to the sky like miniature rockets. The flowers, much like Bob's gardening skills, are left hanging in the balance. But wait, there's more. Bob, in his zeal to nurture his new plant babies, decides it's watering time. He grabs his trusty watering can, filled to the brim with nourishing H2O, ready to quench the thirst of his upside-down tulips. But alas, Bob's aim is as off as his plant orientation. Instead of the parched soil, it's his shoes that receive the generous shower. Squelching around in his waterlogged footwear, Bob remains blissfully unaware of his soggy situation, leaving us to wonder if he's trying to grow foot fungi along with flowers. Despite these horticultural hurdles, Bob's spirit remains unbroken. His determination, although misguided, is truly admirable. His garden might not be blooming, but his efforts are certainly blossoming. Each attempt, each blunder adds a fresh layer of hilarity to his gardening saga. And while the tulips may be struggling, the laughs are certainly in full bloom. Well, at least the garden worms are having a good laugh. And who knows? Maybe Bob's upside-down tulips will start a new gardening trend. After all, Bob's garden may be a disaster, but his comedic timing absolutely unbelievable. Last but not least, we have a babysitter who's in for more than she bargained for. Picture this: a babysitter, young and full of optimism, walks into a house filled with a group of mischievous kids. She's armed with a bag of tricks, board games, coloring books, and a foolproof bedtime story to get them to sleep. She's ready, or so she thinks. Imagine her surprise when she's greeted by a chorus of giggles and a barrage of bouncing balls, flying toy planes, and a whirlwind of activity that would put a tornado to shame. She tries to regain control of the situation, but her attempts are met with cheeky grins and innocent eyes that say, "Us misbehave never!" Before she knows it, she's been roped into a high-stakes game of cops and robbers. And guess who's the robber? That's right, our unsuspecting babysitter. She's tied up with an assortment of jump ropes, shoelaces, and the occasional dog leash. The kids are the cops, obviously, and they're having the time of their lives. Our babysitter, however, is beginning to regret her career choice. But wait, there's more. Once the kids tire of their law enforcement roles, they decide it's time to switch careers. They're now doctors, and guess who their patient is? Yes, our brave babysitter again. She's subjected to a barrage of medical tests, including a reflex test with a toy hammer, a heartbeat check with a stethoscope made from a toilet paper roll, and a temperature check with a plastic thermometer. Throughout all this, the babysitter maintains her composure. She plays along despite the chaos. She's a trooper, a real hero, a master of patience. She's the unsung heroine of every parent's night out. But as the night wears on, the tables turn. The kids grow tired, their energy dwindles, and slowly but surely they start to yawn. The babysitter seizes her chance. Out comes the bedtime story. A tale so magical and captivating, it has the kids drifting off to dreamland in no time. And there she sits in a sea of sleeping children, a small smile playing on her lips. She's survived the night, outlasted the kids, and proven that she is indeed a super babysitter. So, who's babysitting?